Yeah.
But when students do come through my classes, I teach basic, survey of religions, kind of thing. And when we were in the Christianity section, I'm in the South, so there are lots of Christians in my class. They go to church. And so I say, why do you go to church? And they don't know, right? And I say, what about this part of the Bible where, it's talking about this angel or that angel and, this and that? And they're like, well, that doesn't happen anymore, right? So I try to get them to interrogate, their own religion. Like, what does it say? Why are you Christian? Or why are you Jewish? Like, why are you doing this? Is it just because this is the cultural tradition, your heritage? Because it could be, and that's fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I really liked about Carl Nell's talk at the SALT conference was that he basically did the same thing. And I thought it was really interesting, but he did the same thing of, well, you're talking to people who are religious, and all of a sudden they're confronted with the reality that what they think is this metaphysical thing is actually real. Well, that's going to be a shock for them.
Are you implying that perhaps we as a society may not be ready for disclosure?
I guess I would draw an analogy, though, for people believe in a certain faith tradition, whatever that faith tradition is, and hold to that and subscribe to that in a very serious and devout way, and sort of pose the question, even for folks of that ilk, and I would count myself as one, if you're confronted with the reality of your religious belief system, like the reality of the metaphysical, an angel, a messenger from God, what have you, that's going to be a sea state change in your way of dealing with reality, right? Even though you already believe it, right? So it's one thing to believe and it's another to know. And I think in this context, this phenomena has the potential for an analogous effect, both on the individual and on society.
There's, this recognition that we're not alone, okay? But you have to get right with these things, okay? So that's the whole idea was they were looking inward. So they weren't looking outward. So the whole tradition, like of Paul, he changes his name because, think about his conversion. He was Saul and he was living a life of violence of all things, right? He was very violent. Now, why he was violent, I don't know, but he was persecuting and wanting Christians to die. And then he has this Merkabah situation that he seemingly didn't cultivate, right? It happened just spontaneously to him, it seems, at least from his position. He didn't call it into his life. And then it changes him. He changes his name. And then he works for these communities. He gives his life to the formation of these communities.